Hey everybody, it's Brady here from Inner Strength Check, rolling dice and playing games for personal growth and social change. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Good evening, everyone. This is Brady coming at you live for Inner Strength Check podcast. If things sound a little bit different, it's because number one, I'm in an Airbnb, and number two, tantamount to my ongoing hypocritical nature as a human being, a little bit hungover right now. I just wanted to raise an important point prior to today's discussion, which is held with Elissa of Deadlifts and Death Metal. Elissa elucidates some of her experiences with what she identifies with as eating disorder. We do not discuss particular treatment modalities. I share some similar experiences, however, I do not have a diagnosis of eating disorder. I do not identify as having lived experience with this complex issue. I'd just like to raise the fact that the obvious caveat that anything discussed here does not qualify anywhere near appropriate professional advice. Eating disorder is quite a nuanced and complex phenomenon with a lot of comorbidities, and it requires often a specialist clinical touch. Now, if you're in Australia, there's several services that you can access. There's the Butterfly Foundation. You can also seek a mental health care plan through your GP. Prior to doing so, you can actually go online to APS, Australian Psychological Society, find a psychologist service. You can then look for specific assessments and specialties for clinicians who will be able to either identify and or work with treatment on these sorts of issues. I understand there's a lot of service gaps in Australia with eating disorder. Unfortunately, a lot of the clinical services seem to be relegated to youth under 25, and I'd just like to acknowledge that there are a lot of service gaps in this space, both within public, community, acute inpatient, and the private sector. It's something I hope that with the recent Royal Commission into Mental Health in Victoria sees gaining some extra traction, but I just want to acknowledge the fact that although we both made brief allusions to things like body dysmorphia and some other behaviours around restrictive eating, I wanted to raise that as a content warning. We do also discuss depression, some of the more, tricky aspects of neurodivergence as well. On that topic, there is some pretty personally based advice for myself as a neurodivergent person, where Elissa asks how to more effectively communicate, or just wondering if her communication, which actually my reflection of that was that I actually think that by the end of the interview, it's quite clear that my interviewee has a style that I think is inclusive, neurodivergent friendly. So I just also want to recognize that throughout this podcast, my lived experience does not corroborate to everyone's lived reality. We're all human beings, we're all different. I understand that neurodivergence is quite a bit of a big tent issue too. And look, I'm going to be talking quite a fair bit about that in my podcast. In fact, it's going to be kind of one of the main themes, but I just wanted to just sort of champion the lived experience of my neurodivergent peers and just offer that what solutions might work for one person may not work for another. There's quite a number of great resources out there on Facebook. Jen Has ADHD is a great page. Awakened Neurodivergence is a great page. Self-Love Rainbow is another good one. These should also be available on Instagram. The unfortunately named ADDITUDE, Attitude, .com, is actually a fantastic and comprehensive resource for those of you living with, thinking you may have ADHD, but also quite a lot on the complex comorbidities that often come with living with this neurospiciness. So just a couple of points to raise there for you guys. This isn't me doing any kind of risk-averse medico-legal backpedaling. I just want to sort of raise in advance that there wasn't really much prep for this discussion. In fact, there was none, because that was going to be both of our style. That was the agreed. That was more of a conversational piece. So we didn't really have an agreed direction. So I just wanted to raise these prior, and I hope you do enjoy. Please check out the show notes, as mentioned. You can find them on Anchor, and you'll also find them in the blog post for the Spotify episode, which will be available on the website innerstrengthcheck.com. If you have any issues or any queries about the episode or anything you'd like to raise, please feel free to send me a PM on Facebook or email me at info@innerstrengthcheck.com. If you'd like to consider for interviews of any kind, I'm after pretty much anything: artists, RPG designers, TTRPG designers, players, GMs, DMs, hobbyists, music industry professionals, tabletop industry professionals, visual artists, healthcare workers, random people. It's all inclusive, really, and I'm happy to chat to anyone. And as you'll see in the coming episode, I can chat the treads off a Soviet tank. So I hope you enjoy my discussion with Elissa. She actually asked some quite interesting and insightful questions and offers quite good feedback. So thanks again to Elissa. Keep kicking ass. You do excellent work in your training, and it's really good to see people's holistic, environmental, psychosocial realms captured within her work. I think that's something that's greatly missing within the fitness industry, which is something that we touch on. Again, we make some pretty sweeping generalizations, but we're just having a laugh in it. Please don't sue. Alright, here it is. G'day everybody, this is Brady from Inner Strength Check, coming to you live from the cavernous depths of Athletic Gym in Thornbury with my good friend Elissa Jewell from Deadlifts and Death Metal. I currently need either a doctor, a priest, a medic, both, and have the hangover that killed the dinosaurs, but I'm ready to have a good chat with my friend here, proprietor of Deadlifts and Death Metal. How you going, Elissa?
I'm fucking great. I'm a lot better than you, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doing well.
So today we're just going to have a bit of we're more conversational, just shooting the shit really, top quality podcasting professionalism over here, but Elissa is very much in the spirit of the podcast, so all things around lifestyle, hobbies, music, and metal. So, how's things going in Deadlifts and Death Metal, Elissa?
It's taken off like probably more than I anticipated it would, which is fucking great. Like I'm absolutely counting my blessings, but I guess it just kind of points to, if you have an idea and you think it's going to work, just fucking do it. Yeah. So this was something I posted maybe 7 years ago on Facebook. If I ran a group class with metal, would people come? And the answer was yes, obviously. So
if you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
So it was that simple, really?
It was, yeah. So we started out with monthly events, and the first few were pretty shitty, as you would expect. But with a bit more experience and a bit more time, it got refined over the years, and then working at a really shit gym before this was kind of the catalyst to trying to find somewhere else, and then we had a dedicated home. So instead of being a monthly event, it's now a 24/7 deadlifting metalhead mecca, basically.
24/7.
Well, not 24/7. I'm not fucking here that often, but
So obviously you've got a bit of background in personal training, fitness, everything like that. So what was the lead up in your career up to deadlifts? So you mentioned you had a bit of a shitty experience with the gym. So what sort of what's your career trajectory look like so far up to this point?
I guess going way back, my origin story was there was a 12-week challenge that was run by a supplement company called Max's, and I'm like, fuck it, I love going to the gym, I'm pretty dedicated, I want to see, how far I can push myself in that time. So I just walked into a Doherty's gym, First mistake. Second mistake was just taking whatever PT was there who just happened to be behind the desk, and signed up with him. 12 weeks later, I had body dysmorphia, orthorexia, and exercise bulimia.
Right.
And I had that for like 5 years.
Right.
Yeah. So those 12 weeks really fucked me up mentally and physically. And that was kind of the catalyst for becoming a personal trainer, because I thought, fuck it, if it's so easy for people to be so fucked up by someone who's supposed to make you healthy, right? Then, you know, there needs to be more people out there who actually give a fuck about their clients in every respect, not just how shredded can I get you in 12 weeks. It's like, what am I really getting for those 12 weeks?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So pretty heavy stuff. If you don't mind walking me through that 12 weeks and what that experience was like, because that seems to have instigated something in a pretty short span of time. So
So at the time, I weighed about the same as I do now. I was like obviously not having as much muscle tissue or anything, but I wasn't overweight by any means. So I was about 60 kilos. He put me on a 1,100 calorie diet to start out with. So
cough.
Yes, and then
Doherty's, friends of the podcast.
Yes, we love Doherty's here. So they put me on a 1,100 calorie diet. There was 40 grams of carbs a day and about 2 hours of exercise 6 days a week. That was my starting point.
Cool. So basically pseudo keto with starvation mode and over exercise.
Yeah, straight off the bat. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
All the balanced ingredients for healthy physiology.
That's it. And I remember at the time, like, huge alarm bells were ringing, and I was like, this is hard, but I was super dedicated. And I think that's probably where most of the issue came from. It's like I was willing to do whatever it took to get this result. And even though I had those misgivings in the back of my head, like I'm fucking hungry, I can't sleep, you know, he gave me like 8 fat burners to take a day, which is nothing but caffeine. So basically I was like, I felt like a meth head basically, like I was just fucking...
essentially, in a way,
so that's where we started, and then at the end of the 12 weeks it was 750 calories and 3 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Was there a rationale for that?
Well, I asked him, like I did a bit of research and I sort of went to him, hey, what about refeeds? Do I ever get a time where I get, you know, a free meal, or can I just, you know, can I release myself from the shackles of eating fuck all for like, you know, one day or something?
And get myself a goddamn cheeseburger because I'm having visions of it in the night, waking up in cold sweats, wanting a pizza.
That's it. I'm eating my pillow in my sleep. And he basically just laughed at me, and like it was really fucked up from like a mental health perspective too. That when I asked him questions and when I had obvious, you know, concerns about what was happening, he kind of just palmed it off and laughed it off. And I remember saying to him that, you know, none of my clothes were fitting anymore and I had to buy, you know, a whole new wardrobe. And he just laughed at me and said, don't worry about that. Don't buy a new wardrobe. But never extrapolated on it. Never said, you know, hey, as soon as you stop doing this, you're gonna fucking blow up and you're gonna binge eat and purge and like, you know, just all of that shit that my approach now as a coach is like, I would never give someone that in the first place.
Yes.
But if they had to do a super restrictive diet for a short amount of time, I'd be like, cool, this is what's gonna happen. This is the physiological changes you'll experience. This is how your mentality is going to change. This is how lack of sleep is going to affect you. I would make sure they had all the information possible and then said, look, if you want to do it, we'll do it properly, but you're going to experience this and then I'll help you out of it. So it was like at the end of those 12 weeks, it was like, wash your hands, you know, don't no aftercare. There was no spooning after he fucked me. It was like,
wow.
And
didn't even light a cigarette, folks.
No, that's it. So it was pretty fucked up. But that was in a way one of the best things that could have happened, because now I know from experience what that's like, but I also know what I don't want other people to go
Absolutely.
through.
And what strikes me as different about your business and your approach is a lot of personal trainers, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I'm just pulling the threads together, but it sounds like
it's very easy to query why the fuck am I on 1150 plus supplements plus this.
Yeah.
And you presented some evidence and you're basically laughed at.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've noticed that a lot of your business newsletters, your posts on social media, definitely comes from an evidence-based and a research-oriented framework. Do you feel like your personal experience feeds into that?
Yeah.
Bad pun intended. But do you feel like your personal experience, or do you feel like is there also sort of an underlying interest and passion for having like an evidence-based practice with you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the things that really drives me is education. Because like that desire to want to know more and to be able to manipulate things easier for someone or for myself is super important, because it's like, if I can use my knowledge now to avoid someone having to go to extremes and get a better result doing less, that means my clients have, far better, far better experience doing it. They don't have to go to extremes. They don't experience those sort of ingrained fucking polar opposite issues that I had as well. So if I can use, scientific evidence to make the pathway far easier for someone to tread, then I will do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Plus it's fun. Like I love studying shit.
Yeah.
I love learning things. Like,
Yeah. I'm sure like many of the listeners, all three of you, you're a bit of a research nerd just like myself. So it's obvious that that's kind of informed a passion for having something to go, well, actually, this needs a bit of an evidence-based framework to it. So again, pretty touchy subject, but how do you feel that you sort of navigated through that? So there was a time, obviously, where you were given some pretty all or nothing, concrete and extreme advice, which, to be honest, if we look at things like cognitive distortions, black and white thinking, all or nothing thinking, you look at gym culture, that's it, hey, on, off, no switch. So obviously it seems like you've worked through having a more nuanced approach to exercise and eating yourself. So was there anything in particular, like any particular supports or any processes that you found kind of helpful to work your way back out of that Doherty-shaped hole?
Well put, very well.
I'm gonna get, please don't sue me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I got better at asking myself questions.
Sure.
I think it was a process, and it was a slow process. It probably took me 4 or 5 years to actually be able to go, for example, to go out to eat without worrying about the macros in the meal, or like feeling that anxiety because I wasn't able to track my food, or I wasn't cooking the food, so therefore it was a bad meal. Like, I think asking questions and just being my own sort of devil's advocate, so like constantly asking myself why, and then reflecting on my answers, and then asking why again, and just doing that over and over again. And I think too, remembering how shit I felt when I was in those 12 weeks, and then contrasting it with how much better you fucking feel when you feed yourself well and you're well rested and you have energy. It's like, sure, I'm not as lean as I was then, but I'm also far happier. I have, a fucking sense of humour now, just little things like that. And you don't realise how much lack of energy in every sense can fuck up your decision making in everyday life until you've gone through that sort of down period.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's not to sound like a mansplainer or anything, but I mean, it stands to reason. Like, our brain runs off glutamate, which is derived from calories, laws of thermodynamics, all that stuff. I'm not pretending to be a dietitian or a nutritionist, but it stands to reason that if everyone has a basic total daily energy expenditure and our brain literally fucking uses 20% of that, and you drop down to those numbers versus even your basal metabolic rate, stands to reason that cutting that in half is probably going to do something. But do you feel that might be hard for people to draw those links because there's a bit of a culture of there's almost sort of a norm with gym culture, and possibly even maybe a bit of a power imbalance where people go, you're the personal trainer, you're the one giving me advice, and they cop that. Do you feel like there's a bit of an an underlying expectation of clients that are coming into gyms, seeing personal trainers, that take it more as gospel due to their role, or?
I think definitely when I first started being a PT, I had that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I reflected on, in the sense of like how I interacted with my clients early on in my career, was that I realized I was giving them my food issues. I was giving them my body issues because the way that I interacted with them or spoke to them created that sort of air of authority that, you know, if I got results, for example, even though they fucked me up, but if I got results from eating low carb, I probably would have pushed low carb. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah.
I think now it's a bit different because I have been so vocal and so, I guess, vulnerable in a way about what I've been through, that I don't get that anymore. And I'm more likely to say, cool, I've been around for 13 years. I've done every kind of diet. I've done every kind of training program. If someone comes to me and they, you know, they don't want to do something, I can still figure out a way around it. So it's kind of not a thing anymore, but I definitely think the fitness industry as a whole creates issues and then presents the problem, like presents a problem as something that they can solve. And then it's kind of this fucking revolving door of like, make your clients feel like shit so they buy a program, and then when they buy the program they still feel like shit, so you like create the next one, and it's like a fucking shit Ouroboros. It's just like I think the fitness industry as a whole has a lot to answer for, because usually, and I was definitely one of them, usually the personal trainers who are selling these products are just as fucked up as the people they're trying to help. So it's like a big clusterfuck of people with body image and mental health and physical health issues that just can't get out. Yeah.
Lots of perfectionism in the fitness industry. Absolutely. I've noticed that myself. So from my personal experience, like I did the ketogenic diet, put it all back on, was fantastic for me. I mean, even my blood work and all that was great, energy out the wazoo, fantastic. But what I noticed going into keto that was probably the most off-putting part, really more than the dieting itself, was that culture and that sort of noticing a lot of rigidity in people's thinking, really inflexible, very, there's this sort of, go get it, smash your goals, achieve things, but there's this underlying almost sort of like, this just relentless pursuit of perfectionism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you find that now that you're not in that, it's easy to look back and sort of go, next time I do it, I will change this or that? Like, do you...
Well, to be honest, I feel like similar to what you said about the 12-week thing, it's kind of like I'm still figuring out the balance. And I mean, I just wolfed a big ass burger and chips after drinking all night, so I'm no saint. And hopefully none of my work clients are listening, but I guess I figured it was, it's around sustainability, right? I think, and at the end of the day, and I think that developing just a more sustainable relationship with yourself, which it sounds like that's kind of the process you've been on, has been kind of helpful in just basically taking as it comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did metal come into the equation then?
Good question. This is you know when you talk to someone about their passion and they just get really fucking lit up from it within, and they look like they've just taken an ecstasy and it's just dropped. And like, let me tell you about my favorite things. This came about because I wanted to relate to my clients better. Like, I'm quite an introvert naturally, even though you probably wouldn't think so, like when I'm in a gym environment. But I realized that one of the reasons my business wasn't going as well as what I wanted it to was because of my interaction with my clients, my ability to empathize with them and to sort of engage with them and to really be open and vulnerable and to sort of support them mentally. it's hard for me to do that when I'm training people I don't identify with. So soccer mums, fucking, you know, business professionals, even though like obviously I do have business professional clients who are metalheads, the most important thing to me was to have that love of something that we shared that we could then use as a catalyst for everything else. Plus I get to listen to fucking sick riffs all the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was like create something that you want, that I wished this gym existed for me. So I'm like, well, it doesn't exist. Why the fuck don't I just do it myself? Yeah.
And it seems like, you know, you've taken a gamble on that approach and shown your passion, but luckily you're amongst metalheads who are some of the most passionate people on the fucking planet.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting going back what you said before a little bit about soccer moms and business professionals and all that sort of stuff. I feel like I can kind of relate because for me, I mean, even this morning, after I woke up wishing I was dead, but I'm here, even chatting to my lovely Airbnb hosts, and you know, they're young, they're our age, they've got an investment property, good on them, go for it. And they're talking about, you know, I talked about my day yesterday at work, which obviously self-disclosure, you know, confidentiality, ASW code of ethics, don't you worry. But essentially, big shit show on a pretty acute basis. And it's funny the response that people will give, say someone, so for instance my Airbnb hosts, you know, they work in finance and real estate, and the jaws dropped. Oh my God, I can't imagine doing that. And from my perspective, I can't imagine doing what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, sure, it's going to lead me probably to an early grave 20 years before my time, but I literally cannot imagine stepping in the shoes of, like you said, some of those clientele. So it sounds like you've got a bit of not just good marketing, but a bit of a vibe attracts a tribe.
Yeah.
And just a shoe that fit sort of thing with clients. So metal was just an easy
Absolutely.
choice.
Yeah, 100%. It's just makes so much more sense in every respect, and it makes me far happier to come to work. Like it's like I get paid to hang out with my friends and watch them lift. I mean, who can fucking argue with that, right?
That's right.
So good. Yeah. But I was gonna ask actually, like your job being so emotionally taxing. How do you deal with that? Like when you put everything into looking after someone, how do you then sort of switch off and go, I need to fucking fill my own cup as well, because otherwise I'm going to burn out? Like, what's the balance?
Well, that's the thing. It's an ongoing battle. And as you said, balance. Well, me nearly yakking up a cherry sour at Lasties at 7 o'clock in the morning is not exactly balanced.
That venom cherry sour is fucking great though.
And to be honest with you, I mean, going to that point, so I guess for me, from a neurodivergent point of view, it's like I'm very prone to all or nothing thinking. I'm very prone to being impulsive. I'm very prone to, as you said, going hard and absolutely going into it with full force. And in my profession, that lends itself quite easily and quickly to burnout, because you are sort of you're balancing a few factors. So you're balancing your kind of natural emotional distress of going, because you're working with disadvantaged people, and going, shit, this person's not doing well, I'd love to help them, with my own sort of impulsivity, which is like, I want to get in there, and like I'm impatient, like let's do it, let's get in there, let's get this shit done. But time and life of being a human don't work like that, you know. A lot of people that I've worked with across my career, disability, mental health, housing, all that sort of stuff, they may be chronically physically unwell, they may just be having a brief, you know, reaction, maybe they're grieving, and they're all right. But I think one of the things that I've sort of had to practice, and we talk about this in dialectical behavior therapy, is radical acceptance. But that's basically harsh and honest truths with yourself.
and statements around that. And a lot of the time, from a social worker perspective, especially because my theoretical lens extends pretty far out, so like past the sort of the individual and out into the community and stuff. So I do spend a lot of time worrying on behalf of my clients for forces that I can't control, the macroeconomic situation, NDIS, housing, etc. But for me, it's sort of like, okay, I've had to learn to kind of boundary myself there and go outside of whatever little tiny advocacy thing I can do in my role or promotion or whatever. That's actually outside the scope of my control, and I have to accept that. I have to practice acceptance and letting go and going, yeah, there's these dynamics and systems that are heavily oppressing people. And sometimes people I work with have all the resources in the world, and they may be challenging and difficult, and they may be challenging and difficult through no fault of their own. It might be informed by trauma, injury, genetics, or just a lack of insight. And that's also hard to sit with, because everyone else in their orbit is bashing their head against the wall, pretty much begging them to cut their shit. You know, you need to cut down, you need to stop drinking. Going back to what you're saying before, like, you can kind of relate it to this personal trainer's plan, right? You need to get on this plan, and we're going to do this, and I'm going to throw this, and this at you. I have to be careful not to be that personal trainer with some of my clients, because similarly, the hurt, if you're kind of overdoing it, the hurt can become harm. And sometimes it really is a case of keep it simple, stupid, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, yeah, I don't know, that's my long-winded way of answering your question.
No, I love that. That speaks volumes about, I guess, how much experience and insight you bring to your role. Like, how long have you been doing it now?
Well, I've been a qualified social worker since 2017. So I started studying psychology undergrad 2008. Had to take some breaks. Ironically, psychology was where my mental health onset was. Yeah. Psych honours and masters. So yeah, I've been doing this for a while. But yeah, and in terms of yourself around fitness, so when you were going back in terms of your trajectory with like work and that sort of thing, have you always been in the health space yourself, or?
No, I actually wanted to go into psychology, and this is a really dumb train of thought, but let's go with that. Yeah,
let's go. Dumb train of thought, that is my MO.
That's my speciality too.
Yeah.
So I thought I wanted to go into psychology, because the way that the human mind works or doesn't, I guess, has always been fascinating to me. But I thought, you know, there's not a lot of opportunity in psychology. Maybe I'll go into marketing, because it's basically psychology, but you know, same but different. And then I got into marketing, and I'm like, I fucking hate this.
Yeah.
It's the psychology of getting people to buy shit.
Hell yeah.
It fucking sucks.
You've seen the Bill Hicks marketing thing? Kill yourself?
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that, guys. It's just a skit. But yeah, dude, exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like, marketing was one of so I started off doing marketing and psychology double major.
Yeah.
Marketing was pretty much what killed it for me.
Yeah.
Because I was doing intro psych going, oh, this is awesome, interesting, this would be great for helping people, and it's cool. And then marketing was that, but how do we rip off kids? And,
God.
you know, old people and all that. Gross oversimplification, but you know what I mean? It to me, I don't know if you feel similar, because it seems like you've got a similar sort of interest in psychology and the mind, but marketing just felt like that, grafted around, okay, how do we boost the numbers? How do we get more sales? That sort of thing.
Exactly, and it's actually very similar to what the fitness industry does, which is to, I guess, make you feel like shit about yourself, so that you want to solve a problem by buying something.
So creating a deficit, or like a perceived need,
Yeah.
just so that it kind of influences people's perception to go, oh, it's kind of almost hijacking it's hijacking a lot of things, but it's almost Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's taking something from the top and shoving a product right down the bottom there and going, see, same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so how did it feel? You sort of started, at what point did you go, not for me? What made you sort of pull back from that?
I guess this sort of feeds into why Deadlifts and Death Metal exists today, but I was such a black sheep in that office. Like, I worked for a superannuation company in marketing.
Yeah.
I fucking hated myself. I hated my life. I hated the people I was working with. I hated my job. I hated studying. And like, I think that was actually around the exact same time that I did the Max's Challenge. So I think I was feeding a sort of mental health beast by restricting food.
Yeah.
Or like, I couldn't control the fact that I hated everything in my life, so I'd control how I looked and how I ate to deal with that. Which didn't work out very good for me. Don't recommend. But yeah, I sort of decided around about the same time that I would go into fitness because I wanted to, as I mentioned before, like prevent other people from going through the same route. But it was that awakening. It's like, hang on a second, I'm on a trajectory. I'm studying marketing part-time. I'm working for a superannuation company. I have nothing in common with anyone I work with. Every minute I spend on the train going to work, I'm fucking dreading it. Like, I just hated it. So that experience as well sort of gave me the wherewithal and the balls, I guess, to just be able to say, I'm fucking done. I'm changing, because the only thing worse than staying here is staying here because I'm too scared to take a leap and do something I actually want to do. And then it was kind of funny, the first job that I got in fitness industry was selling gym memberships. And that was even worse for a while, because going back to what we were just talking about, that whole marketing bullshit thing, it's like criers are buyers. That was one of the first things. Is
that a saying?
Yes, that's a saying in fitness marketing when someone's signing someone up for a gym.
Criers are buyers.
Yes.
That is fucking fucked.
It is.
Gym owners, go fuck yourselves. What the fuck?
Athletic is not part of this. Yeah.
We do not sponsor. Athletic is not responsible legally for any. Yeah. Again, generalizations. I do them.
Yeah.
But yeah. Criers are buyers.
Yeah.
That is fucked.
That's it.
Up.
Yeah. So literally the concept of selling someone a gym membership is you make them feel terrible. You ask them, how much weight do you want to lose? Why do you lose it? How is your life going to change when you lose weight? You sort of create that need or that deficit,
right?
And then build up the concept that the gym is automatically going to help you to lose weight.
Yeah.
If you sign up now, your pain will be taken away from you and you'll be absolved and fucking, sunshine and rainbows. But then there's no acceptance of the fact that you've signed someone up by using pain.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not a fucking motivation.
Yeah.
Pain is not a motivator particularly well, in the sense of like, sure, in that moment they felt like shit. But then when they go home, they're still at the same environment. They've got the same job, the same people around them. They've got, all of this other shit that's going on that needs to be encompassed as part of going to the gym. So signing up for a gym or like buying a personal training package or doing anything like that, people assume that they're ready to make a change when they do that. But actually they're just saying, I don't like where I am. They're not necessarily ready to act on it. So like, I think there's a psychological fucking readiness to change or willingness to change.
Yeah, stages of change.
Yeah. So just because someone purchases something doesn't mean they're actually ready to change. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned over the last few years. Because I'd always bitch and I'd be like, oh, this blah 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 client, bought a gym membership or signed up to training and they don't seem to want to actually do anything. And it's like, well, they're just not that far along in the process yet.
they're not for that far along in the process. Also, we guilted the fuck out of this person who probably came because they do have some motivation to get better, and we've induced them with guilt and a direct debit. Why aren't they coming?
Exactly.
This is weird. I don't get it. I thought they were super motivated. It's a gym. We're all happy. Hoorah! Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That is wild. I actually never thought of it that way, and I wonder if I've signed up to gyms and just not even realised that seed's been planted. And that's kind of a reverse version of what we sort of might naturally do. One of the styles in counselling is motivational interviewing, and that's around introducing a bit of cognitive dissonance. So if someone sort of say if they've got drug or alcohol problem, it might say, they might say something that's sort of a bit dismissive of this, and you basically make a statement. Essentially, I mean, this is me with 2 brain cells left this afternoon, but you're essentially making statements, reframing it, and without just kind of querying it, typically people go, and so this, paraphrasing, is that correct? Motivational interviewing is a little bit different, where you kind of summarize by introducing the dissonant thing. So you could say, someone might say, my wife really hates me drinking. And from a motivational interviewing standpoint, you might say something like, I don't know, so your wife's concerned about you, but what you just introduced there is like the fucking malign and evil flip of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so obviously you're passionate about helping people and you look at people from a whole person approach. So stands to reason that didn't set well with you, and that's why you're here now.
Absolutely, yeah.
And is that also one of the motivations for bringing in music into the fold? Yeah,
absolutely. So, like, if the fact that people can come and listen to fucking blast beats and tech death, or black metal when they train, is extra appealing, that kind of breaks down a few barriers. And then when they come here, they might see that they're exactly the same as everyone else here. Like we have all kinds of people. A lot of people that come here are neurodivergent as well. So there's like a huge variety of people. Like we're just kind of the weirdos from high school that decided we all love fucking heavy music. And now we just train here. Yeah. So it's really inclusive. It's like I fucking love some of the conversations that happen here. Like they're very non-PC, so I probably won't share them.
That's fine.
The fact that you can come here and be completely authentic. Yeah. You don't have to pretend to be someone who gives a fuck about, football or anything like that. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but no one is under any pretenses that they have to be anything other than themselves.
Yeah. And for me, I get that vibe when I go to a gig. I get that vibe walking in this room. You guys can't see it, but there's skulls and metal posters everywhere. It's fucking sick. And you know what? The average boomer would probably walk in here and go, oh my God, this is satanic. I walked in and I actually felt my chest. Like I felt relief in my chest. Like, and going into your typical gym, it's like I'm almost putting on a bit of armor, because I do feel like it's sort of a microcosm of the average world, like you were saying before, soccer mums and all that sort of stuff. Whereas for me, the older I get, the less and less time and patience I have for that, where I basically center my life around going to hang out with fellow weirdos like us and listening to metal and cool shit like that.
Exactly.
So for me, I really like the fact that this space has metal posters up, because I'm like, I'm in my happy place. What are your thoughts around just what are you? I'm interested to hear what attitudes are outside of your clients and in the fitness industry in general towards metal.
That's a really good question. I think metal at most gyms is a big no-no unless it's a powerlifting gym. I find anything to do with like really heavy lifting, heavy music, just it fucking gels. So maybe not as heavy as what we would enjoy, but you'd be more likely to walk into, you know, a powerlifting gym and hear Slayer playing. Yeah. So that's fucking great. But I think outside of that, it's just it's ignored, and that's one of the reasons why this place exists as well. Like it's so much more normal to walk into a gym and have everyone hate the music. Yeah. Because it's inoffensive music. Yeah. So even though
it's offensive as fuck to my ears.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's like, even if it's just top 40 absolute drivel bullshit, it's acceptable bullshit. It's like people are used to putting
it's saccharine, it's sweet, it's predictable, it's dependable, it's applicable to the population. You don't know who you're going to get walking through the door, so you probably don't want to put on Magruder Grind or Rotting Christ or Faceless Burial, because Susie from accounting is going to run out screaming. But interesting. Yeah. And just going back to before, you said powerlifting and metal they gel together. What are your thoughts on that from your perspective?
They fucking do.
Yeah?
Yeah. No one's getting a 1RM squat PB to Kenny G anytime soon. I don't know, maybe someone.
I don't want to meet that person. That sounds like a fucking... people think metalheads are psychos. Again, I'm not bashing anyone's taste, or maybe I am. But if you're out there powerlifting 1RM PBs, Kenny G, I'm scared, okay? So what do you think of the sort of... I've got quite a number of theories on, and I could talk about this shit all day. I have to actually stop myself physically, because I could just blah, 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 blah. That's what podcast is for. But what are your sorts of theories or hypothesis around why they gel together so well?
I think it's when you go to a metal gig, when you listen to a really fucking powerful song and the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and or like you're around all your friends and you're fucking having the best time. That feeling is the same as what I get when I'm lifting heavy. Yeah. Like when I'm really
absolutely
in the
yeah.
It's exactly the same fucking thing. It's just one is probably a little bit healthier, quote unquote, than the other. It depends how much you're drinking, how much alcohol is involved. But to me, it's like, you know, beer, deadlifting, and heavy metal just go together. They're just like I kind of have made most of my life around those three things, but obviously one of them isn't great to do all the time, but the other two you can do on a daily basis. Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah, so it goes back to that balance shit that we were talking about before, I guess. But there's a primal kind of like a really deep-seated, age-old fucking desire to like do something powerful or to be powerful or to feel like you're completely and utterly focused, and that's what that gives. That's why it works so well. Yeah.
So it's great for attentional focus, but it's also kind of targeting something a bit more primal, evolutionary.
Yeah.
Tickling that mammalian lizard brain, going
exactly.
All those me lift heavy stone memes.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think too, it's like, I don't use this language very often, but I will always use it when it comes to lifting and heavy metal as a combination. It fulfills something in my fucking soul.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just tickles my soul clit in a way that nothing else can.
Damn. Yeah. You heard it here. Sorry, Mark, but soul clit.
Soul clit.
We're not family friendly this podcast. It tickles my soul clit. My soul clit, my soul prostate, a lot. But I've got quite a number of theories on it, and I could probably honestly do an entire podcast on it. Maybe I will. But I think one of the interesting things for me is that, especially working with a lot of very complex folks with a lot going on, you know, different diagnoses, lots of health conditions and stuff. And people say, oh, just go for a walk. And it's easy to blow that off. But actually, there's a number of huge benefits. So, for instance, with strength training, and there's evidence to demonstrate it actually boosts your serotonergic, so your serotonin receptors, brain-derived neurotropic factor, so it increases neuroplasticity. For things like ADHD and autism, it actually helps with the executive functioning, that sort of thing. But a lot of what I'll do as a social worker, for instance, let's say I'm working with someone with like a complex set of mental illnesses, is, you know, they could be, a walk's not going to cut it. They've heard that 50 million times from, say, triage or their GP, and if you say go for a walk, they're going to go, yeah, okay, and in their mind they're going to be thinking, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Because I probably would be thinking that.
I would be too.
And if I was pissed off enough, I'd say it. But there's all sorts of little kind of interesting techniques to get people out of their heads and back into their body. You know, people do things like, one of the things they recommend around like self-harm is get an ice cube and put it in your hand, because that is such a strong stimulus. You really can't, your body can't ignore that. You have to actively fight in your frontal lobe against your whole body going, oh my God, what's this? It's cold, what are you doing? And I kind of get that sensation when I'm lifting, especially if I'm lifting heavy, because I'm like, okay, I don't want to fuck up this deadlift, because I don't want to put my back out, you know? But also, it's kind of a whole of body version of that with lifting, especially because you're into doing a lot of free weight stuff, right? And so what I've noticed, because you and I have done sessions before, you're very, very targeted around your proprioception. Like, you're like, lots of metaphors, and God, I remember when we trained in here, and I was driving back home, and I had a 5-cent piece knot in my back of DOMs. Yes. I had a little 5-cent coin of DOMs. I woke up the next day and I was like, that's the most specific muscle pain I've ever had. That's all I went, man, she knows her fucking shit. That is sniper accuracy, my friend. That's how we know you were lifting properly though too. Yeah. Like, give yourself some credit. Like, that means that you were able to really identify the movement and how to how to engage all the joints and the muscles concurrently, which is fucking incredible. Yeah. But even in that moment, like, the amount of corrections and all that sort of stuff that had to be done just to get the form right, like, by the end, there was no way I could think about work or other people in the gym or the 879 trillion possible disaster scenarios that are constantly running through my head about everything at any time because I'm a neurotic motherfucker. Yeah. That went away. And I find that I can kind of slip into a bit of mindlessness and stuff when I'm strength training. But what I've found that I love about lifting is the heavier it gets, the more attentive I feel. And that's even without me going, I better not just like, do some squats, go home, ow, there goes the bulk disc. But it kind of has a commanding presence, right? Because it's your muscles, you're feeling it. There's a lot of depth to it. And my kind of armchair psychiatrist theory is that a lot of metalheads, as you said, like neurodivergent, or the concept of HSP, not halal snack pack. That's my first thought. That's great. So there's this concept around the highly sensitive person. Okay. So neurodivergent people often fall into that. A lot of people with lived experience of mental illness or a history of it. It just basically is this concept that some people are just born highly sensitive. So that leads to a lot of creativity. So a lot of these bands and artists, fantastic creative work, or a huge love of things like metal, lifting weights, that sort of thing. It can come at a price, easily overwhelmed, overstimulated, neurosis, that sort of thing. And so for me, I feel like the psychological benefit of metal and lifting, especially together, it's sort of like, it's a dual process. They're both kind of down-regulating all of that. They're bringing me back in my body. There's, it's heavy, it's there, it's commanding, it's in your face, it's full on, Yeah, fuck yeah. Every now and then I got to put on some Radiohead or Sigur Rós, but... Yeah. What's your sort of relationship to metal, you think? Where did that first start?
The first metal album I ever heard was actually Acid Bath's When the Kite String
Oh
Falls.
my god, that was your first metal
That
album?
was my first metal album. I was 11.
Holy shit!
Yeah. And to be fair, like I did just listen to like Bones of Baby Dolls and Scream of the Butterfly because that was, you know, the more acoustic songs. Yeah. But then I picked it back up like, I don't know, 4 years later or something, and I went, fuck it, I'm gonna listen to the heavy shit. I wonder what the rest of the album is like.
Well, you know what? You did not have our generation's typical trajectory. Mine was Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 and a nice slow incline up, new metalcore, blah blah blah. Fuck, man. Yeah. You went straight for it. Acid Bath.
Yeah, that was my cousin's influence, and it's funny. Ben, my cousin Ben, who had that album, he had what was it? Machine Head, Cannibal Corpse, Faith No More, like a mixture of kind of not new metal exactly, but like not super heavy. And then he had Cannibal Corpse, Acid Bath, and a couple of really fucking heavy things. He listens to Doof. Like pretty much exclusively Doof. And every time I see him, I don't see him that often, but he's like, "You still listening to metal?" And I'm like, "Yeah. You started this.
You started it, motherfucker."
And he's like, "Oh yeah, I used to listen to metal." I'm like,
oh man, I hate that fucking shit. What a cop out.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you say I used to listen to metal, anyway.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty much where it started, and it just grew from there. So I think that was around the same time because I'm in my late 30s now, so grunge was around when I was growing up, and so it was like this trajectory of like Smashing Pumpkins and Pearl Jam and Tool and shit like that, and then
Acid Bath is just like the meat in that sandwich.
That's it. So I'd kind of just sort of float between heavier alternative or just alternative, and then Then the older I get, the more I fucking love the heavy. Like I'm just going heavier and heavier.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure Mum will never listen to this podcast, but I'll never forget. It was actually, sorry Mum, love ya. Good Schadenfreude. I remember buying Pennywise's Land of the Free in 2001, and I chucked it on the stereo. Mum walks in, and she's got a smile on her face. "Hey Brady," and it was just it's punk. Her face dropped. Like, I have never felt such vicarious, crushing disappointment from like what was radiating from her face, and she's not a metal fan, in my fucking life. And of course, like, what was I, like 13, 14, whatever, year-old me went, yeah, I'm a fucking rebel. But I think that for some people, heavy metal was I think heavy metal is definitely an ongoing rebellious thing. I'm definitely pretty, for a social worker, I'm pretty goddamn antisocial on a society-facing level, man. Society, man. But I feel like some people have a bit of a metal phase, and it's a bit of a rebellion, or they need to get some stuff out, and that's fine, that's fair. Lots of people mellow out, but I find it interesting when you talk to people, your cousin, like I've got a mate, and I was like, "Oh, have you heard the new something or other, something heavy?" No, I don't listen to metal. I don't listen to that stuff anymore. Like, I'm not angry anymore. And I thought, okay, number one, nice privilege. I'm probably going to the grave angry. Actually, if anything, I'm getting more pissed off with time. So I'm probably following that heaviness, pissed off trajectory the older I get. I'm going to be an old man listening to goddamn Mosbo. Or something. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I find that interesting that for some people, metal is this like, oh yeah, it was this thing, but I'm not angry anymore. What do you reckon's in that?
I don't know. Maybe it sort of speaks to what I was talking before about there being that raw sort of primal me lift big rock sort of thing where the intensity of the music can match the intensity of your emotions. But even having said that, your emotions could be anything. Your emotions could be happiness.
Yeah.
And I could be so fucking happy listening to metal. I can't be happy listening to any other genre of music. music. So I think it's just like the brutality or the power behind the music is directly proportionate to my state of mind in a lot of cases. And then let's face it, the sort of people who would say, I used to listen to metal but I don't anymore, probably have a very confined perspective of what metal is. Like,
exactly.
Metal has so many fucking genres. Like, you could listen to, fucking 100 different metal bands, and they'd all be some different subgenre, and some of them would be soft and sort of, comforting and like having a hug, and then others are like being stabbed in the face repeatedly. It just depends on what, the music can match the emotion. So I don't think anyone who's really spent a lot of time listening to metal as a whole says that anymore.
Yeah.
It's like when someone says, I don't like beer, but they've only drank VB. It's like, no wonder you don't like beer. You're drinking piss. Like,
Vaginal bacteria.
Exactly.
Yeah. Keeping it PG, folks.
Fuck.
Yeah. We've lost her. This show is sponsored by Feminine Hygiene Products.
Oh my
God.
God.
I'm going to hell.
And not Doherty's.
But yeah, I totally agree. Like, and I think it's kind of self-evident to the point where I actually think it's become a bit of a trope to even say, oh, there's so many different genres, blah blah blah. It's pretty self-evident.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a range of metal music for any post-metal, sludge, industrial, grindcore, technical, progressive, black and jazz, gentcore. I don't know. Take your pick. But do you find that? I guess I find that metal, that stereotype, metal is bad and inherently evil, rah, rah, rah. That's probably because its inception was around the Reagan era, Satanic Panic, all that sort of stuff. But I don't get the sense that that's as common these days. It feels more like an 80s boomer, and a lot of the like Death's Human and all that early stuff, like it was on purpose. It was shtick. Like they were like, oh man, this really pisses off conservatives. All right, guts, blood, death, fucking stab you in the dick hole. Listen to that and watch them. Watch conservatives cry about it. But in terms of now, I mean, you're kind of living proof that there's stuff that looks like H.R. Geiger's Nightmares in here on the walls, and yet people coming in, they're stoked, they're having a good time, they're motivated. Do you feel like, having metal incorporated into your practice actually promotes a lot more positivity?
I think so.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I can see how someone, from the outside looking in goes, how the fuck could you say that? Like, you've got a fucking inverted pentagram right behind your head right now as I'm looking at you.
Sick.
Like, there's a Baphomet poster and it's like, oh, are you promoting Satanism or something? It's like, no, I'm just promoting fucking metal. Like, metal has always had this imagery. It's like listening to a horror movie. Like, I don't watch a horror movie and then suddenly go out and do all of that stabbing bullshit. I don't know, like, it just doesn't faze me anymore. It just is the way that metal has always been. So, yeah. What was the question again? I've forgotten.
Typical Metalhead energy. So what's the sort of plans for the future for Deadlifts and Death Metal then?
So, I'm really fucking excited about this. I have always wanted to do a half metal festival, half wellness retreat sort of thing.
Hell yes.
Yeah, and that's the response I've been getting from everyone. So that's happening in December. I'm keeping it hush hush at the moment because it's going to be pretty much mostly exclusive to clients, but then I'll open up public tickets once we fill the spots.
Right.
So I won't say any more than that, but...
Click delete.
Yeah. I think the response that I'm getting from everyone is so overwhelmingly positive that if I don't make this a yearly fucking thing and make it huge, then I've definitely failed in life and I should just stop. Yeah. So that's going to happen. And then Next month, I've been invited to a brewery, the Heavy Choir. Have you heard of them? They do like obviously vocal harmonies to metal, but they're hosting a gig at Tallboy and Moose next month.
Okay.
So they've asked me to open for them, which is really fucking blowing my mind because it's like I've got to somehow deliver a stretching and mobility routine to a bunch of people who have a beer in their hand. And it's not like there's yoga mats, there's no space on the floor. Like no one wants to roll around on the floor of a brewery, right? So my thought was basically, I'm going to give a 20-minute mobility and stretching routine to help people fix their lower backs while they get drunk. That's my goal.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah.
That's the holy trinity. Beer, death metal.
Exactly. So I'm like, how the fuck am I going to make this work? And then I realised the answer was kind of staring me right in the face. Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm very excited for that.
That's great. We'll wrap up in a second. I have a couple of questions from the Legion, from Musolegion.
Awesome.
Shout out to my Musolegion admin friends, but I thought, considering we've touched on some, and thanks for sharing your story and your journey. I know that that's never easy to go back and revisit, and that it's quite it's a complex issue, really complex issue, especially around the intersection of gym culture and our own kind of psychology and that sort of thing. If you were to give advice to someone who is going through similar and just dipping their toes into fitness, wellness, that sort of thing, as a client or as a prospective PT or just someone looking to get into the industry, what's kind of your cliff notes, your take-home points on what you'd probably say to them?
I think there's a tendency for everyone to assume that the more complex something is, the more hoops you have to jump through, the more advanced something is, the better the results are going to be. The inverse is opposite. Is true. No, the opposite, you know what I mean? The opposite's true. Because it's like, the more hoops you have to jump through, the more mental barriers you have to overcome, the more structural barriers as far as, your lifestyle, all that sort of shit. The harder you make it for yourself to follow something, the less likely you are to follow it.
Right.
And then that breeds into that whole, what is it? That all or nothing thinking, or like catastrophizing thinking. It's like, I have 50 things to do today and I only did 2 of them, so therefore I'm fucking terrible. It's like, okay, cool, you did 2 of them. That's 2 things you didn't do yesterday. Fucking great. Yeah. Look at it from that lens and try to find really simple ways to get the best results from fuck all effort. Yeah. So, like if we're looking at a nutrition perspective, instead of trying to follow the most complex, rigid diet possible, have a look at what you're eating and say, what are the big fucking swaps that I can make that would have the best payoff with the least amount of resistance? So even just like having fucking diet soft drink instead of full sugar Coke. I know it's a trope to use the word you used before, but it's fucking true. Like that can start, even the smallest step can start momentum. And then instead of, giving yourself a harder chance of succeeding, make it as easy as possible. So that's absolutely.
Especially if you're like me and you're prone to option paralysis and overcomplicating shit and then spinning yourself out going, I'm going to make a 425 step point plan. And then it dies in the ass. For instance, like bodybuilding.com routines. Jesus Christ. 2 hours a day, 400. What? It takes 10 minutes just to scroll to the bottom. 5x5, a couple of lifts, boom, done. I couldn't believe how easy it was. I thought it was cheating.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you've got that approach in your practice too. You're like, your routines are like, no, bring it back, walk it back, fewer lifts. Let's go fewer lifts, let's go heavy, let's listen to some forward metal.
Exactly.
Awesome. Yep. I'm going to grab these questions, and this is going to be dead air.
Okay.
Where's the phone? Shit.
Oh,
here we go.
That feeling of like,
definitely editing. Yep, there we are.
Yeah.
Alright. Ooh. Okay, so Musolegion admin team. I'm just having to ask some questions. Brendo, shout out to our glorious supreme leader, Brendo, owner and head admin of Musolegion. Has anyone come in unfamiliar with death metal?
Yes. There's been a few people who just really want to work with me and they're like, I'll listen to whatever. And it never works out. They're not here with us today. For reasons
you
unknown.
killed them.
That's it.
You literally killed them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They came in, they just had a heart attack and dropped dead.
Well, there was one lady, she was very Christian, but very tolerant, which is awesome. Because those two things don't normally go together. But she's like, I don't care what music you listen to. I don't care what's on the walls. It doesn't bother me. I just want you to help me get fit. I'm like, cool, that's really fucking open-minded. I love it.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, but unfortunately, she's not here anymore. Like, she kind of never came back. So, obviously, words and actions are different things.
Well, going back to that cognitive dissonance, Christian, there's Baphomet behind me, Cannibal Corpse,
Yeah.
It's that marketing, it's that reverse motivational interviewing. That's alright. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Michael asks, death metal band you'd show someone that wanted to get into it?
Oh, fuck, this is easy. Quo Vadis.
Nice. Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Any particular albums?
They all are good, but the one with Hunter Killer on it, the name escapes me at the moment. But their best one.
Yeah. And any particular reasoning, like other than the fact that they are fucking awesome, but
I think they straddle that line between heaviness and just pure musical fucking ability. So like, even if you were like not a big fan of the vocals, not a big fan of like the heaviness, but holy fuck, can they play? And it like. I reckon someone who hadn't heard metal before, who was assuming it was all just fucking the same BPM, the same, notes. Like, metal can be
like that lady that came in before and never came back.
Exactly. Metal can be very fucking repetitive and samey.
Yeah.
Whereas Quo Vadis have this undulation, or like also, like, another band would be Opeth, because so many non-metal heads, you play them like The Night in the Silent Water and they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
What is this magical fairy tale?
I know, right? It's like, I don't like the heavy bits, but holy shit, they can play. It's like, plant that little seed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played Damnation for Mum. She didn't notice.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to tell her it was the same. Love you, Mum. Anyway, Sam asks, and Sam's a man who's into his fucking fitness. He runs like a mofo. How did you get into powerlifting and group fitness?
Okay. I got into powerlifting because, sort of going back to the mental health and body image shit we talked about before, I wanted to celebrate what I could do. I didn't want to just sort of stay in that, like, I'm only as good as how shredded I am sort of mindset, which is very depleting. It's very, very toxic. So I kind of wanted to go, okay, if I'm eating more, if I'm looking after myself better, I also want to see what this body can actually fucking be capable of. So that's where I got into that.
So you went from a deficits approach basically to the other direction.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, let's fucking celebrate what our bodies are capable of instead of just constantly underfeeding and overtraining them. So the group fitness is kind of a melding together of a bunch of those concepts and values that we spoke about, which is showing people what their bodies are capable of, taking the attention away from how ripped can you get, how much weight can you lose, all that sort of shit. And then it works really well as a group lifting concept too, because you've got that fucking camaraderie that you don't get when you do a solo sport like bodybuilding or something like that. Like, having a bunch of people lifting heavy to heavy music and giving each other fucking support, it's so fucking wholesome. It's like a teddy bear.
Yeah, a group teddy bear hug.
A group teddy bear hug. It's fucking amazing.
That's great. Wholesome 100 emoji.
Exactly.
Awesome. Great response. Top marks, A+.
Thank you.
Last one. How did you learn that there's a market for metalheads that also love to lift?
I just did it.
Mm.
I learned it by doing it, I guess. Like I didn't know that there was a market. I knew a bunch of my friends liked metal and liked lifting, so I knew I had like, at least half a dozen people that might come down. The response outside of that has been, I had no idea. But it makes sense, right? Just because you listen to metal doesn't mean you don't want to move. So it just it was one of those things. Initially, I was really worried it wouldn't work, and a few people that I was, around at the time were like, "Oh, you should probably just stay safe. Just train everyone. Don't be too niched." And I'm like, "Fuck that! I'm not happy training everyone. I'm gonna see what I can do with this." And now here we are. So,
Hell yeah. Awesome. You got any questions for me?
I can't think of any right now, but
That's
I reckon
right.
I'm going to over time.
No, this has been good. We've done a trade back and forth. So
Yeah. Actually, no, I do have one.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, a lot of my clients are neurodivergent. I'm trying to find a way to sort of get better at communicating in a way that I can actually sort of speak the client's language, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Do you have tips for me on how to better sort of facilitate open communication?
Sure. I think one of the things with neurodivergent folks is obviously it's very different flavour. For instance, like I'm ADHD and attentive type, but I was also assessed as having some traits of ASD. However, those traits are due to attentional difficulties. So literally my light bulb goes near and flickers off half sentence. It's like you've paused the VCR and I go, oh, which means me in reading the room, like people literally think, oh, man, you're so fucking autistic, because I'll just be like, adoy, and not read it. I would say just have faith and confidence that what you're doing matters, and that you may not be getting the kind of usual behavioural feedback that you might get, say, from a more neurotypical client, but don't think that that's not being internalised. And I think a lot of the time, especially with ASD, what a lot of folks struggle with is when they feel they've communicated something and the response isn't kind of reciprocated in kind, so you're kind of left guessing and hanging, that sort of thing. I think it's okay to be open and honest and just check in and say, how do you feel around that? I would say that you've got a pretty welcoming attitude and a pretty direct attitude too. You don't fuck around, but you're inclusive and you're compassionate. Maybe I think there's a tendency for us neurodivergent folks to internalize a lot. We're very prone to perfectionism. So I actually think you've set it up well with simple training, that sort of thing. But in terms of communication, I think it's always okay to ask, hey, is there any way that we can kind of, if you're having difficulties, just checking in with them, saying, is there anything that's sort of like about my style that's not gelling, or I just want to double check, you're okay with X, Y, Z. I know that sounds like general basic counselling techniques, but I think a lot of neurodivergent folks will mask, and even in situations where they're among their tribe, such as, like just situations like this or a gig, that masking is so automatic and reflexive that sometimes it may well be that you'll get a response that's a bit of a reflex, like, oh yeah, no, it's okay, it's fine. Look, everyone's different. I'm making generalizations, but is there anything particular around the communication that you're struggling with?
Yeah, I think I've noticed that sometimes when I would like a client to do certain things, I become a little bit of a drill sergeant.
Yeah.
And particularly with neurodivergent clients, that's the opposite. Like,
you
touched on this before, it's like, I'll just go for a walk. Like if someone says, I have this problem, and I'm just like, yeah, cool, we'll solve it by doing this, and this. They're like, well, My problem is doing the things. It's not that I don't know that I need to do them. It's getting the energy to do it, or having the ability to schedule, or I might be telling them something they already know that they're already struggling with, and instead of being empathetic and asking them questions, I'm kind of just like, just fucking pounding them to change when that's what they're struggling with. So I've found that has been a bit of a theme, especially over the last month or so. And I'm never content with having a problem and just letting it happen. I'm like, what can I do? Because I think it's important that if you're going to be a personal trainer, you've got to put the fucking personal in personal trainer, right? Like, you can't just be, well, you're not doing what I asked you to do, so you're shit. It's like, there's got to be that radical responsibility as well. Like, how can I change my approach to make sure someone feels supported in making changes? And like, maybe they're not capable of doing everything I've asked, but can we narrow it down and, like I said before, keep it simple and just go, cool, you can't do the 3 or 4 things we'd like to do. You can't do them right now, but we can do one. Or you can tell me which one of those is going to work better. I think that's what I'm trying to do, but I just find that communication styles is really fucking hard sometimes.
Yeah. I think you've answered your own question.
I think I have.
I think you're doing fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. Cheers.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. And I think really it may be a case of just checking in and leaning into the divergence, creativity. You're pretty goddamn creative. You've got you're swinging fucking maces in graveyards and shit. That's why us neurospicy folks want to come see someone like yourself, because they don't want to see Tom, Dick, and Harry in a Gold's Gym shirt go, do some squats, go you. Like, you're coming out of the work going, let's fucking, I don't know, let's do bow stuff and top of a burning chapel to Emperor, because why not?
That's the best idea. That's next week's class, everyone.
Apparently she's becoming a karate master.
Yeah.
Alright, I've blabbed enough. Thanks so much, Elissa, for your time.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. Loved every bit of it.